Part of why I'm so open about everything in my history is because I wish I didn't feel so alone when all these things were happening.
I'm your host, Katie Levine, and this is Beyond My Lens. Come with me while I reconnect with the incredible people I've photographed to share the stories behind the images you see. Because every powerful portrait starts with a powerful story. Beyond My Lens is brought to you by Narrative, the best culling and editing workflow for photographers, and my favorite way to edit. Okay, so today on the podcast, we have Josh Lamon, the fabulous, and if you don't know, now you know, the baddest bitch on Broadway. Your resume is actually insane. You've been on shows like Finding Neverland, Groundhog's Day, The Prom, Hair, Elf, and even TV shows like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, 30 Rock, Blacklist, and Inside Amy Schumer. But now you're on Death Becomes Her again on Broadway. So thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for listing all my credits, because like honestly, that was kind of an ego boost.
Oh,
Honestly, I was just like, oh, you know what? I feel kind of fierce right now.
you are fierce, and look at your website. Holy shit. No, but I mean, honestly, with such an extensive resume, I was just actually talking to my husband about this. I'm like, it is hard to get into one Broadway show, none, like not even all the ones that you've been on. So I would love to know, like, what's going back to Little Josh? Was this always your dream, or like, what was your first Broadway show, or how did this dream come about?
Oh gosh, it's really all that I ever wanted. And you know, a part of me is like, does that sound psychotic? Like all I've ever wanted was to be on the stage? But like, so my mother would take me to go see plays at San Diego Junior Theater, which is also where like Casey Nicola, Annette Bening, Greg Barnes, like when they were all kids, they did stuff at San Diego Junior Theater. And it was like the best way I could describe it is that it was like a drug to me. It was like I was intoxicated on watching people perform. And even though like in hindsight I was watching kids perform, to me they were like Meryl Streep. They were like the biggest stars of all. And immediately I always had a great ear for music, and I would just I would like memorize the melodies while like sitting watching shows. I would go home and like plunk it out on the piano just by ear, just like trying to figure it out. And so between San Diego Junior Theater and the Muppets, I was doomed to a life in the theater. Like the Muppets and San Diego Junior Theater hooked me to the point that it was the only thing that mattered to me in the world. And it remained that way maybe up until the pandemic.
That's amazing. Wait, what changed in the pandemic?
Well, my entire identity was wrapped up in what I did for a living. And no reason to be here. I didn't know who I was.
I
And
totally get that. Yeah.
yeah, and so it was a big like, you know, lesson that I had to learn, and like who am I outside of this?
Wasn't there
So
a lot of back and forth? Because I remember obviously I follow you on Instagram, and I remember you being like, okay, our show's doing it, or then they're shutting it down. Like, was there a lot of back and forth when the pandemic first started?
oh yeah. So like up into like up into March or whenever the pandemic actually began, I had like work lined up for the next like couple years. Like it was going great. And then pandemic happens, the first 2 years there's really nothing. And then things start to open back up, and I started doing this show, an out of town of a new show, an Idina Menzel vehicle that never really took off, called Wild. And our show halfway through got shut down, like right after opening, got shut down because of COVID.
Well, what did you, I don't know, for me personally, I kind of pivoted during the pandemic. I ended up starting to do these things called FaceTime shoots. And because I just was needed to stay creative. And then it ended up launching, like I've done like 3,000 now since the pandemic.
Wow.
And so I don't, does anything like that happen for you where you were like, hey, okay, I have this time now and nothing's happening in terms of actual shows and productions? Like, did anything creatively spark for you during that time?
Um, yes and no. I got really wildly depressed during the pandemic, and I deal with depression anyway. But like total full disclosure, I started dealing with something called suicide ideation, where
What
it's
is that?
not, you're not suicidal, but like you're in a depressed state, and it's almost like an OCD loop of you can't really stop thinking about dying. And I went and I sought out treatment immediately, and I did go get help, thank goodness. But it was really hard for me to do anything creative. I had a podcast at the time before the pandemic that was doing really well, and then just like most things in the arts, it just started getting more and more difficult to do. The funding for it just kept on being depleted, and the motivation to do it just started sort of drying up. At that point, it was on its third or fourth season, maybe. And
Josh Swallows, Broadway?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And I just didn't have it in me to keep it going anymore. And I wish I could say I was one of those people that was like, I wrote a play, or like I taught myself ancient Egyptian or whatever. But like what I did was I just did what I had to do to survive, to treat my depression, and to figure out who I was outside of performing.
Well, a lot of people don't realize because I actually have OCD, and everybody always, when I say that, they're like, I think I'm, checking locks multiple times or stuff like that, but it's actually obsessive thoughts. And like we're saying with the suicidal obsession thoughts, that it's like most people don't realize that that's actually a form of OCD where you just have repetitive thoughts that really just take a mental toll on you, yeah, physically and mentally. So, I mean, have you always struggled with, I mean, if you, I don't know if you mind me talking about this, but I know, yeah, it's just a lot of people do struggle with mental health and they have trouble being vulnerable about it. So I'd love to, how do you get by day to day? And like, are you in therapy or what's going on to help you feel better ultimately?
Well, I had a long line of very negative, I guess, treatment with like mental health people. But I am back in therapy now, and I'm really, really grateful for that. But what I did was it's called TMS treatment, and it's like OCD. It affects an area of your brain that like you said, it creates a loop, like you're on a loop over and over again with these thoughts. There are so many different forms of OCD, and I think it's important for people to, it's not just about washing your hands 15 times. It's like a thought loop. And so what TMS treatment does is it's magnets, and it's this giant machine of magnets, and they do scans of your brain, and they put these magnets on those areas of your brain that are almost overstimulated, hence the OCD loops. And what it does is it creates stimulation in other areas of your brain, which sort of takes off the pressure of the area that is dealing with these OCD loops. And I mean, it was like a miracle treatment. It's not invasive. It's not anything like, like electric shock or anything like that. It's just literally magnets. And it, it really, really helped.
Well, so how is now being back in a Broadway show? Is that so you've figured out kind of took some identity time off of
Mhm.
when during COVID and then now being back on Broadway, how are you feeling? And how is exciting is it to be though in a show like Death Becomes Her? Because I know you've talked about it on another podcast, but I mean I stand Death Becomes Her. That was one of my favorite movies growing up. Like,
Same.
yeah, how I mean that must also feel really surreal.
It's incredible. It's very powerful, and also it's great being like, this is one side of me. This is my job. This is my career. I'm very grateful for it, and I love it, and I love getting to do it, and I'm very, very lucky to be able to do it. But I also have my relationships. I have, like I did start doing some teaching over the pandemic, and I realized that I love teaching just as much, if not a little bit more, than I love performing. There's something about working with younger artists that are like new and encouraging them and not being like the teachers. I feel like when we were growing up, like a good form of like teaching was like, hey, I'm gonna break you down, and then you're gonna build up to be the artist who you're gonna be. Where I'm like, that's kind of nonsense. Like, you don't need somebody, especially in the acting world, to like break you down and make you relive all your childhood trauma or whatever. But you can be encouraging. You can focus on what is it about this that I love? What is it about this that the student loves? And it creates kind of a sense of community in that way that at least I didn't feel when I was getting my education 8 million years ago.
Well, there's seasons and reasons for things, right? So, I
Right.
feel the same way now. Like I was, doing more like celebrity work for my entire 20s. And then
Mhm.
once the pandemic hit for me, I was like, I don't think, like, why am I doing this? Am I doing it to prove it to somebody or am I doing it because I actually enjoy it?
Mm.
And that realization really hit me hard. And that's, I ended up getting married and all the things. And now I feel a lot of, fulfillment in my relationship and my child and all the things like that. But I love teaching too now because it's like, I don't know, when you actually give a shit about people, it makes such a difference. You can really change lives rather than just performing
Yes.
for a night, which maybe, I'm sure there's many people in the audience where you're like, you have changed their life because your performance and seeing you on stage changed like that perspective for a child. But actually taking the time to, actually influence them in a larger sense and for a longer term probably is really fulfilling.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it reminds me of why I like it too. Because like I don't need to tell your listeners that show business is hard. I mean, that's just kind of the obvious. But it can it's easy to forget why you love doing this and what made you fall in love with it when it's just like a 24/7 hustle.
Yeah.
So working with students, it's a good reminder to me of like, you know what, little Josh, like this was my escape. This was this was my joy, this was my happiness, this was just something that really pierced my soul and became a part of me. And it's not just because like I have to do this 8 times a week, or if I'm not in a show, then I don't have worth. It's really been powerful to be like, you know what? I'm all these things. I'm multitudes. I am an artist. I am also a person. I am also a friend. I am also a child. I am also, a teacher. And it can be all those things at once.
Well, so let's talk about a little bit actually how we know each other. I did a shoot for you for Paper. You were part of a bunch of other Broadway actors for Paper Magazine, and I'm bringing this up because when you're saying I am all these things, the reason I'm bringing this up is because you were all those things when I was shooting you, in my opinion, or photographing you. I hate saying shooting, but you were so magnificent and so gorgeous and so powerful and so cinematic. I remember I texted you the pictures the other day, and I'm like, these look like they could be like a still from a movie. You were like I'm gonna show some. Yeah, I'll show some clips when we actually do the recording. But I mean, if you want to talk about that shoot, because I'm sure it was cool for you, you as well to be a part of a paper magazine shoot, and then for also to highlight Broadway, and then just talk about us working together a little bit.
Sure, Katie, it was such a dream like come true. It was beyond a dream come true. Okay, so like for the listeners, like I've always been like a heavyset guy with a pingy voice. I'm like the opposite of what I think you see in magazines and stuff. And then when I got the not the call or whatever, when I got told that Paper Magazine wanted to do this thing of like up and comers on Broadway and stuff, and that I was one of them. And I'm like, a magazine with like a real photographer, and it was very overwhelming. And you made me feel so at home. I remember just those toys when we were kids where you put like a pellet into like a glass of water and it turns into like a
Oh,
dinosaur or whatever.
yes.
It was like we were insta friends, like just
Yeah,
add water
absolutely.
and like we bloomed. It was thrilling. You made me feel so at home and so like not self-conscious, and that I deserved to be there. And I remember walking. We photographed it at the Edison Hotel, I
Oh, the
believe, in
addition.
Times
Yeah.
Square, the Edition.
Yeah.
And I mean, what a fancy, like I felt like little orphan Annie walking into Warbucks's place. I was like, what is this? And then seeing other performers. I remember seeing Patrick Vale, who was in Oklahoma, and now he's like a big West End star, and being like, oh my gosh, that's Patrick Vale. Like, I'm in the same magazine as him, and like other people that were there. It was overwhelming. It was moving. It meant a lot to me that Mickey, who I believe is the editor of Paper Magazine, who I'm still in touch with to this day, it's just like it means so much that, and I want other people to. Oh gosh, now I'm just like a blabbermouth, but like I want other young performers who are not cookie cutter, who do not look like the perfect chiseled ensemble person or movie star or whatever, that just is different. That they too can be in a magazine, and it's because you bring something unique. And you are enough, you are beautiful no matter what you look like, no matter what shape you are, size you are, that what you bring to the world is the most important thing. And that's what got me there. And it really, to this day, is like a highlight of my career.
I'm so glad it was a positive experience because that's how I felt about you. I was like, this man is so amazing and so talented. And just look at like, compared to even, like say the skinny models that do this, like you brought so much more like fierceness and we worked that camera, you know what I mean? So much more than anybody that I'd ever, like anybody even on that day, I thought you just brought such charisma and it
Oh,
was such a joy to photograph you.
thank you. Because let me tell you, I get nervous in front of cameras, especially like I hate doing red carpets because I look at pictures of red carpets and I just see everybody is just standing there and they almost look sad, or they have like a duck face on, or like no smile, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to look unhappy? Am I, so in front of a camera sometimes where I'm like, put your head down so you look thinner or whatever, like you took all that pressure off, and it's almost like you gave me permission to play, to be me, and to trust that we were going to find some great shots no matter what. And I had so much fun.
I was just saying, I was like, I'm keeping these until we launch our podcast to repost them again, but they're some of my absolute favorite and they bring me joy. And I'm glad it brought you joy.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, a funny story about that. So you know how great that hotel was.
Mm.
I actually was staying at like this really shitty hotel up there, and Mickey was like, "Just take that key card you have." He's like, "And then grab your stuff." And I literally snuck back in that night after the shoot with like my hood down and like snuck in and slept in the like big suite. And I remember I was like, I think I was like smoking on the balcony and like this whole thing. And I was looking down at Times Square, and I was just like having a very private moment with myself. But it was so cool. But yeah, that was like a nice, a fun tidbit about that I snuck into
That's
the suite.
awesome.
So let's get back to you said that you had had some kind of crazy jobs. So I know you have a one-man show coming out, or you're creating a show about one of your crazy jobs. But like, how coming up in Broadway? Let's hear about some of your wild jobs that you've had.
Okay. So, um, I definitely took my own path to where I am now, and I wouldn't necessarily advise this to people, but so picture it, it's the year 2000. I was in college, though I was much more interested in partying than I was in actually going to college. And I ended up taking a leave of absence, aka I dropped out, and I got a job at, my dad was like, great, well then you can take care of yourself now, have fun. And so I got a job at Starbucks. I got fired from Starbucks. I was living in a really dilapidated old building that was, I view it as kind of like a crack house at the time. Like it was like $100 a month, and it was really, really bad. It was like drug central. And this guy moved in to our floor. We had the second floor, and believe it or not, we had a spare kitchen. And so we were like, we have a spare kitchen. He was kicked out for being gay. We were like, we're gonna put you in our spare kitchen and turn that into a bedroom for you. And I absolutely fell in love with him. And he got addicted to meth, and it was really, really bad. And I get fired from Starbucks. I'm looking for jobs in the paper, and I see an ad for phone actors. And I was like, phone actors? This is hilarious. So I called up, and sure enough, it was to be a phone sex operator, but to be a woman on the phone. And it was like in an office with cubicles, like it was legit. You had to dress professionally to work, not like a suit, but you had to look nice. And I was like, they were like, now you know that you will be a woman on the phone. I'm like, that's no problem. Are there other guys there? And she's like, there's a couple. And I became Fiona for the next 3 months. And so it'd be like, I'd get a phone call. You pick up the phone in your cubicle, and it would say what kind of call it was, like if it was like a weird fetish, or like if it was just fantasy girl, which was your main girl, Fiona. I'd be like, hi, this is Fiona. Who's this? So
I'm
basic,
living.
yeah. So I started this job and, um, Fiona was very, very popular on this line. It was great money. And, at the same time, my home life was really falling apart. Things with this guy started getting very violent and very dangerous. The thing about meth that I think people don't realize before they try it, I mean, drugs are bad, but this drug is just the worst. It turns people into paranoid schizophrenics. And he came from a background of intense abuse, and he began getting extremely violent with me. And when you're in that situation and when you're in love with somebody, things don't just happen overnight. It's not like all of a sudden you're in danger. To me, I thought that I could help him, and that
And you
it's not
loved
his
him, yeah.
fault. Yeah, and which was understandable but also naive of me. And at the same time, at work, I had this repeat caller that would call multiple times a week, and he would never, ever, ever want to talk anything sexual or dirty or anything. He wanted to talk to me about my life, and he wanted to encourage me to follow my dreams. Keep in mind, he only knew me as Fiona, but I was so unhappy. I was miserable. When you're doing that job, you start looking at the world very differently. And it's a really, really hilarious for the first 2 or 3 weeks. And then after that, when it's your reality, it's very depressing. At least it was for me. And, but I started opening up to him as Fiona, but telling him the truth about, like, he was the first person that I think I really started talking to about this boy, about what was happening and what he was doing to me. And, also that I moved to Philadelphia to be an actor, and that now I just felt like a failure and a dropout, and that, I just felt so worthless. And he was so encouraging and just like wanted me to follow my dreams. And so, needless to say, all of that ended up with me going out in auditions and getting my equity card and a new career started. But
Wow.
we are my writing partners, Kevin Sack and Philip Taratula. Right now, they're doing Ginger Twinsies off Broadway. They're two of my closest friends, and we've written together a lot before. So we are writing kind of like a one-person show uh, about Fiona, about me, about that time period, and yeah, so it is a struggle kind of like opening up that can of worms again and kind of reliving it. But one story that I will say that is from the show without spoiling anything, years later when I was doing Finding Neverland, I was talking with the men's ensemble about this wild story about me in Philadelphia, my meth head boy that I was in love with, this guy on the telephone that would call me every day and just encourage me to follow my dreams. By the way, he was a manager of a bar in Delaware. And so I'm telling this story, and I'm going to change the names here, but one of the guys in the ensemble that used to live in Delaware goes, was this guy's name Dave? And I was like, yes. He goes, I was working at a bar in Delaware in that time period, and the morning manager, Dave, got fired for calling a phone sex line every day.
Shut up.
So I'm not saying,
That it
but
was
at the same
Dave. Yeah,
time, that's quite the coincidence.
that's wild.
If this is you and you're listening, I'm sorry that you thought I was Fiona, but thanks for like helping save my life, boo.
I think that's incredible because I mean, when you first, I always ask people if there's anything they want to talk about or don't want to talk about when they come on the podcast. But you hear, oh, I was a phone sex operator, and you kind of think it's going to be like this funny, kitschy, whatever. You know what I mean? But there's so much more to this play. This is literally
Yeah.
like survival, domestic violence, like all these things wrapped in, your story. And how incredible is that?
Thanks. I mean, it is funny, and we had a version of it that was like drama, 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 and I was like, oop, 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 nope, 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 time out. Like, I want to focus on all that kind of stuff because you don't really hear much about domestic violence in the queer community. You
Hmm.
know, it's just kind of like people don't think of men or I guess what's the word, like masculine appearing or whatever, people being abused. It's not really in the conversation. And so it's important for, I want other people like me to know that if you are in these situations, you can get help. That, and it's okay if you don't really, if it takes a while for you to see what's happening, but it's important. Part of why I'm so open about everything in my history is because I wish I didn't feel so alone when all these things were happening. So like I think it's important to recognize that. But I do have some really, really, really funny stories about things that happened at that office. I mean, it was like living in the Twilight Zone, but it was also hilarious and I'll never forget any of it.
Well, it seems like you're really putting purpose to your pain, which, you can either let something really drive you down or you can find something, you know what I mean? Because for me, when I'm hearing all like, the mental health struggles and this pain that you've gone through in your life, and then I also see this really inspiring, talented, amazing person, that there is purpose in this pain that you've gone through and that you're going to help so many people. And that's incredible.
Thanks. I hope so. I hope that everybody can find courage in finding their voice. And, I think the most important thing for people to learn, and not just, from me and my story, but like the first step is just talking. That's all it is. You don't have to go through anything alone at all. There is healing with words. And people, if you're listening to this and you're going through something, people love you, people care about you, and it might be hard, but people want to help. People want to be in your corner. People want to be in your army. And practice letting them.
Wow. That was so beautiful. No, and it's true because I think also, I don't know how to describe this, but just the act of letting people in also creates this vulnerability. And I feel like that even with our arts in general, right? Like I said, how many people are you letting in with your story now by creating the show? And it's like, it's supposed to be this funny, artistic side of us, but it's actually, I don't know. That's what I love about what I do is that you can actually help people and heal people. Like even our photo shoot, like it could have given you some confidence that maybe that you were going through something that week and that confidence could have helped pivot your direction, you know?
Yeah, and it did. And it did. I mean, I look back at those pictures so fondly, and yeah, I'll never forget it.
Well, so let's talk about Death Becomes Her a little bit more. So are you still going on? When's the show running till? How long is it going for? Or like, and
The show's open ended, and I'm hoping to stay with it for a long time. I love it. It's been a dream come true. I mean, I was obsessed with the movie. I think if you're like a gay person, it's almost like the Golden Girls. Like you're required to be obsessed with it, even if you don't like it, you're required to love it somehow.
yeah.
And when I first got offered it, it was for ensemble and the first kind of reading of it, just to read it out loud. And the only people that are still in it from that are Jennifer Samard and myself. And over time, the part that I am playing in the show, I saw that role being developed originally on other performers. And there was just something in me where I was just like, I need them to see me do this. This is like, this is me. Like, this is, I know this comedy and I know this character. Immediately, I was like, he is a, he is a mix between Mickey from The Comeback and David from Schitt's Creek. And that is who I want this person to be. Let me read it. And I stayed with the development of the show for a few years. Then they were auditioning for the workshop of it before it went to Chicago for the out of town. And I remember there was a miscommunication between casting and my agents where I was only given one part of the script to read and not like a few. And so I read, and it was for a different role. It was for the role of Chagall. And I read it, and it was very funny, and I was very, very pleased. And the director, Chris, was like, "Great, do you have the sides for," the character's name was Brendan at the time. "Do you have the sides for Brendan?" And I was like, No, I was just given the sides for Chagall." And I could see like the energy of the room darken and die. And I was like, "But I'm a really, really quick study. I'm happy to go into the hall and look at it. I'm very quick." And he was like, "No, that's okay. Thanks. Thanks for coming in." And immediately I was like, ah, like I was like, "Nope, I guess I'm not getting this. Damn it." And also at the time, pandemic wise, I was out of work for a long time. I had a healthy savings account until the pandemic. So Mama needed money. Mama
Yeah.
needed not an off Broadway job. Mama needed a job that pays. And gosh, I remember going home to my boyfriend and just sort of like sobbing about it. And then, of course, I get the call like, "You got it. It's you. The role's name is Stefan now. Go get him." And in Chicago, it was so much fun just being a part of this. Marco, who wrote the book of the show, one of the funniest people on the planet, um, he saw something in me and he loved my sense of humor. He knew how to write for me, and the role started getting bigger and growing. And it was just such a dream come true when somebody that you admire that much admires you back and is like, "I see what you can do, and now I see this role in the show and what it can be." And by the time we left Chicago, I was very pleased, very happy. I got offered Broadway, and I was really excited. And I thought that it was going to be a featured ensemble role like it was in Chicago. And then I get to the first day of rehearsal for Broadway, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, you have a song in Act Two now."
Wowza.
I know. And,
Yeah. Big time.
slowly but surely it became a principal role. And I mean, to get to be with, Michelle Williams,
I
Christopher
was just about to say,
Sieber.
I don't know if you
Yeah.
know, she's from my hometown, Michelle
Oh,
Williams. Yeah, she's from Rockford, Illinois, and I was like, oh. So yeah, I always like looked up to her, and then I don't know if you know, because I on another podcast I heard you like A League of Their Own. So like that's Rockford, so it's like there's a whole bunch of Rockford going on in your
I
world that you probably
love
didn't know
that.
about. Yeah,
You're a Rockford peach.
yeah, literally, and so is she.
Um, Michelle is the coolest, nicest, sweetest, also a huge advocate for mental health. Um, my sister deals with severe mental health issues. And I was talking to Michelle, and she immediately was like, "Do you want me to make a video for her or FaceTime her or something?" Like, that is selfless. And that is somebody using their celebrity and putting it to the most beautiful use ever.
Oh, she seems
So,
like an angel. Actually, we had a really tragic thing happen to a family friend. Their daughter, she got married like 2 months after I did, and she just passed away one morning. And she went to the same church as Michelle. And my parents went to the funeral, and they were like, there was this woman performing at the church, and all like we were like, holy shit, her voice. And I was like, they were like, it was Michelle Williams. So she came back for the funeral and performed for this woman. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's I mean, tragic thing that happened, but just what a beautiful way to honor her life. So I thought that was really amazing. She did that.
God, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that is who she is. And so to get to be with her, to be with, Megan and I did Wicked together almost like 20 years ago. So to get to like, and after like 20 years of life goes by, to absolutely be able to reconnect, it's really powerful. Jennifer Samard, she's a genius. And Chris Sieber, who I did Prom with, it's like all my dreams are coming true, but this time we've had so much life happen between when I knew most of these performers until now, and all. It's like a real beautiful coming home to our first love, which is Broadway.
Well, I love that again after coming out of COVID to have that and like it's coming home to family. It sounds like that's
Yeah,
priceless. Is
yeah.
there a role that you haven't played that you've dreamed of playing?
Oh, there's a bunch of roles that I kind of dream of playing. A lot of them are very obscure. Two of my favorite shows are called Queen of the Mist by Michael John LaChiusa and Fly by Night by people names I don't remember right now. But I saw both of these shows, and they both have roles in them where I'm like, God, I would love to play those roles. I would love to do a play, and of course, I would love to play Mary Todd Lincoln in Oh Mary.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I will say, I wish I knew more about, like, one of my best friends, she's a big Broadway girl, so she knows everything. So I'm like, but it's hard to even, there's so many shows out there.
So many, so many. But also like my real dream, I think, is I really want to be a voice actor for cartoons. I feel like I was given this weird pingy voice. It would be a dream to be in a cartoon.
Well, do you know what's funny? We were just watching Hercules with my daughter the other night, and she was like, I felt like I was giving her a Broadway show. Like I was just being so dramatic for like the Where I Belong song or Somewhere I Belong. And it was just so funny. But I'm like, those movies, like actually a girl that was just on the podcast wrote the Moana 2 soundtrack and just yeah, like, I mean, do you know Abigail Barlow? She wrote the unofficial Bridgerton musical too, and
I
won.
know who she is. That's so fancy,
Oh, she's
Katie.
so cool. She's the coolest. But yeah, I'm just saying like the impact that you can have when you're in that kind of voice, like you know, even if imagine if you were like the snowman from Frozen or something like that, it's just such a long, like lived character that could go on. So I can totally see that for you. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. We'll put that out in the universe and see what comes back.
Amen.
Is there so I know like just okay, so I just want to say this in general. When I first moved to New York, I went to a Broadway show and just like walking outside after a Broadway show gets out and like all the people that are standing to like because there's always some famous actor or actress or singer that's in a show and then everyone freaks out. But just what's it like to be in Times Square every day, really, with like the whole Broadway hustle and like is there kind of like a funny or chaotic thing that's happened on set during those moments or anything that you can tell that's a kind of a funny tidbit?
Um, okay, so I don't know as if I really have fun tidbits about Times Square. Um, Times Square is so many things. It's basically an enormous amusement park slash mall
Yeah.
at this point. Um, so the good things about that is there is nothing like the buzz of Times Square, of I mean, it's just wild at all times. And also, there is this electricity that forms with an audience and you, and when you're leaving the show. And like for me, I don't often stage door because I get a little overwhelmed to big crowds of people. And after COVID, I'm a little like, if I get sick, that means I don't make money, so I'm not going to risk it. But I do generally leave with the audience. I'm in my clothes, so nobody really recognizes me or anything. And it's so fun getting to see the joy on their faces. And it reminds me of the same kind of joy that I had when I would like go see my first few Broadway shows and just be bouncing out of the theater singing along or laughing about my favorite part. So it's really fun to be like, look, they loved it. Job well done. Let's go home.
Because I know you've also said that Broadway saved your life. What made you say that?
I think it's because it's all that I felt like I had. And again, dealing with like really, really heavy depression also led me dealing with really, really heavy addiction and really, like kind of like a self destructive personality in a way. And just like getting to perform on Broadway and also just really like musicals in general, plays, listening to these things growing up. It saved me in ways because it could be my friends where I didn't feel like I really had friends, or I could express things that I didn't have the tools yet to express. Things like Rent, where I was like, there are other gay people. Like, wow. And not only are there other gay people, but they're not being made fun of. They're not, they have a community. They're loved by their friends and family. They have these things. Not to say that my family didn't love and support me, they did, but being a queer kid in the 90s, I mean, it's not easy really anywhere, but specifically like when you don't have the internet and you're like, am I the only one? Or people are calling me these derogatory names. Does that mean that I am one? And musicals just provided a safe space. Also in high school. Okay, so like I was the worst student in the world. if it didn't have to do with acting or choir, I was not interested. I remember my like algebra teacher was like trying to get me to study and do well and was like, "Well, you need math if you're going to be an actor because you're going to need to know the dimensions of the stage." And I was like, "Wrong. That is the stage manager and set designer's problem, not mine." You know, I was
Good for
very
you.
much yeah, but like in theater, in choir, I was I got to be the quarterback. I got to be the cool kid. I got to be the person that people would be like, wow, they're great, rather than just like the way that I think I was kind of treated by like bullies, which was, you know, like I was anything but great. I was anything but, you know, normal.
Well, your role on the prom, right? Wasn't that kind of like a cultural touchstone for the LGBTQ community in a lot of ways on Broadway? And like, what did that role mean to you personally?
Well, the role that I played, not so much, but the role that I understudied, I covered Brooks Ashmanskas, who played Barry. And Barry Glickman is very much like Brooks, and I have a lot in common with him. We're, you know, heavy set, very gay, very funny. Um, and it's not often that you find people like us standing center stage singing a big song in Act Two and getting to go through that kind of, you know, journey of love and self-acceptance for who we are. Like there's that lyric, who cares if you're a big old girl, just get into that gym and twirl. You know, it's like, and the amount of people that I would meet at the stage door or whatever that, you know, that were kind of like me and that were like, I never imagined seeing somebody like me on Broadway like that. And you you've let me know that like it's I want to go pursue my dreams now too. You know, it was very, very powerful in that way.
Well, so what advice would you give? Because I have tons of actually, there's a bunch of, it's so funny. For now, we're living in Arizona. I end up doing a lot of headshots for young actors here, and there's actually like a whole thriving theatrical scene. Like some of the kids I've got to photograph, I'm like, you are so, so, so talented, but they have just big, big dreams of Broadway. What advice would you give to them?
I do a lot of audition coaching, and between those clients and students that I have, I say all the results are out of your control. The results do not equal your success. All you have to do is show up prepared, passionate, and present. If you show up prepared, passionate, and present, that is what's in your control. That is your success. All you have to do is provide the fiercest option of you that you can in that moment. And that is being a successful artist. We cannot control if we get the job or not, but we can control what we bring to the table. And when we're doing that, when we show up prepared, passionate, present, we are respecting the other side of the table. The other side of the table is putting together a puzzle, and it's you or it's not, but they are looking for good options. And if you provide them the fiercest option that you can that day, every time there's something remotely right for you, they are going to bring you in because you show up prepared, passionate, present with a fierce option of you. So that is my advice. And of course, I'm going to say the other thing. You don't need a degree to do theater, to do acting. You don't. And now that I'm in my mid 40s, I can say with confidence that if you have a degree, I do not have a degree, if you do, it gives you more options. It's one thing to hustle in your 20s. It's another thing to be hustling when you're my age and older. It doesn't get easier. And having a backup plan does not make you any less of an artist. Even if you choose not to do this at all, you are still an artist, you know? So I'd say be good to yourself, love yourself, find your community, talk to your community. And also, one more piece of advice. The people around you that you're auditioning with, we're often told, oh, it's so competitive, it's so competitive. And I see people that get really competitive and it kind of makes them nasty.
Mm.
We are not each other's competition. We are each other's community.
Wow. That was so good too, because I also loved it because I'm a big believer in saying you don't have to have a degree to be a photographer, but my husband's in school right now too. He's 34 and he's just going back to school because he felt now he's found what he's passionate about and it's good to just have options. I told him even if you never use the degree, it's just good to have the options in the backup. But did you need it up until then? No, and it's fine if you never had it at all. So I love that
Amen.
advice.
Good for him. That's great.
Yeah, he's trying, man. He's trying.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm so glad you were on the podcast today, and I really appreciate all your vulnerability and words of wisdom. It meant so much to me. And yeah, any last words?
No, just it was a real honor being here. Thank you so much. I adore you. I adore your work. And I adore that you're doing this podcast. I think it's going to be really great for so many people.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to Beyond My Lens. I'm Katie Levine, and this podcast was created out of passion for sharing these stories. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe, share it with a friend, and join me next time as we go beyond the lens.